Do you have any ideas for like new projects in the works? I mean, do you have what where are you going to go on from this, Dan?
Well, I I did the two plays since. One on Tamerlane, the historical conqueror, and then I reworked the Beowulf myth. Right now, the play I'm working on now, I started about a week ago, was is a play on Joe Hill, the Union activist who was killed in 1915, accused of murder. So I wanted to do a historical character that's not as well known and isn't a conqueror of a country. So I wanted to bring that down. And then I've got some other. I mean, I've always got ideas. I mean, as far as the next book, it I've had I have an idea of a final Maravelli family book, because at the end of my spy novel, the guy who takes over the Maravelli family is Gino Vincetti's pal Joey Greco from the Vincetti brothers, although he's grown up, and I sort of want to have Joey Greco run the Maravelli family into ruin, sort of like I guess Tony Soprano did.
Oh no.
In but yeah, so I mean, but that might be 2 or 3 years off. It all depends. This Levels, as I said, was about 4 years since I first had the idea of writing a book, and I had to
Yeah.
wait on it. I did a book called The Scorpion Swam that I wanted to use the British scientist Michael Faraday, who I've always been a big fan of. And what happened was I wanted to do a Faraday novel, but his life was too boring. So I decided to
Yeah,
merge
yeah, yeah.
Michael Faraday in with Henry Matsumi, my alter ego in that book. And then he just ended up sort of being a Jiminy Cricket. Michael Faraday ended up being sort of a Jiminy Cricket in that book. And that's all that's left of my idea of the Michael Faraday book, because Michael Faraday, although he's a great scientist, led a fucking boring life other than his scientific discoveries. So,
Yeah, like a scorpion. Well, what really intrigues me, and I know a lot of other readers of your work, Dan, is kind of in a sense this sustained continuity, this fictive continuity that kind of runs through a lot of your works. I mean, what with my last question, what I wanted to get a sense of was like was Levels going to be like a sort of a hinge or something, like where you're gonna like, was it the end of something and the start of something else, like, because in a way there's so many projects that like have kind of the sort of the weight and purpose that they feel like they could be final statements to something, but yeah, it just we just keep going on. We keep getting kind of this ballooning out of this like building out of different worlds and coupling together of different narratives. But which is curious, bearing in mind like the historical work you've done too, like in your plays, like with the Alexander play and the Khan plays and the Beowulf play and the Arthur plays, all these sort of historical figures. Like, but like I was saying with like a friend of mine the other day that like it's almost as if you're trying to like absorb all of history, like every single historical sort of story, and
well,
like
I'll tell
absorb
you,
it.
with the plays, in in my in the play that I just finished, the last one that I finished, which was on Beowulf, there's a character called Chloe Rainier, and that's based upon a real life actress named Chloe Lanier. And Chloe Lanier is on the American soap opera General Hospital, which was the basis for Upstate Hospital, where
Yeah.
the two Rebecca characters. There's Rebecca Forbes, who is based upon the real life actress named Rebecca Herbst, who's this gorgeous brunette who's, I just liked her for 20 years. She's a very good actress. She's a good actress, but she's not a great actress. And then the more flirtatious character, who's called Rebecca Selig, is based upon an actress named Rebecca Budig. And Rebecca Budig is the better actress, but she's not, in my mind, not quite as beautiful as the other one. But she's always played bad girl characters. And so I said, let me take this. But this Chloe Lanier, the real life actress Chloe Lanier, is in her mid-20s. She is a great actress. She reminds me of Megan Fowler. She reminds me of Jenna Rollins. She is a great actress. I've tried a couple of times to see if I could interview her. She just left the soap opera. So I said, let me introduce, because for example, I have a character, Megan Morrow, who's appeared in a handful of plays, who's based upon Megan Fowler's. She was in my first play, which was based upon her and a Valerie Bertinelli character stand-in. And I said, let me take this Chloe character, and I can do some meta stuff with her. So, because in this first play, Jessica Wagner, Megan Morrow, and Chloe Rainier appear. And I said, I want to eventually start a series of plays called the Chloe Chronicles about a woman in her 20s who's an actress who's going to go through assorted things. But I wanted to introduce her metaphysically because in, for example, this Joe Hill novel, Chloe and Megan appear again, and so I want to introduce her into sort of the Danny Wagner verse, and that was the way to do it. But as far as like books, other than maybe the Maravelli wrap up book, I do have an idea for a World War II novel, which would, but again, that's years off because in my mind there's a character in the Vincetti brothers in the Big Frank scenes of World War II where Big Frank kills one of his COs, his commanding officers, and I said maybe I don't want to do the officer that's killed by Big Frank, but maybe he has a brother. And so I focus on the brother, and then he hears about his brother being killed or whatnot. And that would be my take on World War II, separate and apart. But again, there's a lot of ideas that, again, will just come. Because it could be in 3 months, I'll come upon something, I'll write 3 or 4 plays right in a row that I have no idea that I'm going to write right now.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking, do you still get trouble like putting real life characters into the plays and stuff? I know in the past you've had difficulty sort of with that sometimes.
With the plays,
not with the play, but like with your novels, I know you've got some trouble with that.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, with the novels, you have to. I mean, with anything, you have to disguise it to a degree. But I mean, if I mean, you know, for example, I guess in the Vincetti brothers, I mean, it's less the people as though taking those some other works. Uh, you know, I use, for example, some song lyrics in the Vincetti brothers. But I mean,
Yeah.
with characters like the Megan Morrow being based on Megan Follows, I mean, number one, it's a good character, and it's clearly it's acknowledged that it's based upon, and it's not that character. So it's like if I did a character based upon Travis Bickle,
So surely you would argue that all your characters are good characters. So like, so the argument is if we're in one of your books, we should just be flattered.
Oh, you're talking about people that I've used personally. Yeah, well, someone told me you thought you were going to end up in the book. I mean, because
No, like I would dread that. Like, but like I'm saying like, is it still like a difficult or like tiresome thing to like incorporate those things from real life or those people from real life?
Well, it's like with Woody. It's like in a lot of Woody Allen films. I mean, is the Woody character really Woody? You know, he has different names and whatnot. And yeah, there's going to be obviously based 40 or 50% in one book, film, 30% in another, 60 in another. I mean, the various iterations of me are like that. Helenka, what little we get of her is certainly like Jessica to some degree as described by Tom, but still,
But in a way, kind of like it might seem like a trivial thing on the surface, but like in posterity, like when people in the future read your works, that is going to be a big thing on their mind. That kind of like, who is Dan Schneider? I mean, and you are kind of a big presence in the works. You're like looking over the reader's shoulder a lot of the time. So like that is going to be kind of something that people like are going to want to like have to like wish they could travel back into the past to like fucking ask you. And even though it's
well, that's
like,
why I do these videos too.
Isn't it?
That's why I do these videos too. But that's something that has waxed and waned. If you look at, for example, the Vincetti brothers or Tumbleweeds, which were the first two books of the New York Quartet, there isn't that much of an overlap. Yes, Manny Cole is certainly has certain aspects of his life that mirror mine, but Danny Wagner is clearly the character that's the most like me. Tom Alden is peripherally like me in that he's middle-aged and he's a writer, and seemingly this Hindu-like, god-like creature comes to his time and his place, and may or may not be the agent behind all of this. But again, that it's Tom. This could all just be Tom's ego and his fantasy about being a great writer. And that's something I've been accused of by people who are trolls online or whatnot. So you got to play with it. You have to have fun with it. So what would happen if a Dan Schneider like character was stuck in an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic world with a lot of beautiful women, and not only that, but holograms who are ready to please him and are constantly tempting him and whatnot. And yet he doesn't know if his wife is dead, so he can't act upon it. So I mean, you got this ultimate kind of, in a sense, he's got this forced impotence upon him. So he has these, and that might be the thing that generates all of these different levels here of where he's going up and down. And the levels, for example, go from level 0 to level infinity, but we only see a number of levels, so we don't know how long this goes on. This could be something that, like Groundhog Day, stretches out for thousands of years or something. Or he could, even if he goes with hundreds or thousands or trillions of levels in between, what is infinity?
It's just like in that sense of the Slaughterhouse Five, that subjectivity of time and consequently space.
Yeah.
We don't know how long Tom's been in any given level.
Well, Billy Pilgrim becomes unstuck in time. Tom is unstuck possibly in time, but maybe in his mind or someone else's or something else's mind. So Tom has become unstuck in mind in some way.
Yeah. Like but in a way, like he's devisualized. He's lots of different things at the same time, and in a way that, like you're saying, there's no one definitive meaning or explanation that will sum up or tie up or roll up all these things we're doing in the narrative or anything else, because everything is uniaxial. There's lots of different things, different ways into the story, ways through it. Like, but in a way, how you turn this into, like, just structures and structures, or levels on levels. I mean, like, just in the sense that, it's this space, this prison that Tom has to get through, just like we have to get through the book. In a way, we have to find our way through, and we have to kind of kind of be impressed and be enjoying what's happening at the moment. But we need it to change moment to moment in order for us to sustain that enjoyment or engagement. Well, so it's that kind of that pressure, that stress, kind of thing. That's what's there with TV, I think, which is so emblematic. That thing with, like, what keeps you watching. The cliffhanger at the end of every episode and all that sort of the melodramatic element. If you take my meaning.
When we spoke the last time about some stuff, and when you spoke about a Norwegian in the family, I told you how in the bits trip through literature, you had said something like that you were glad you didn't know how long it was going to be when it started out. And in a similar way, the repetitions of the death of the deer is similar in that it like Bit, it happens over again, but it gets bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller and changes around. And in a sense, if you don't have to read it all if you don't want to, but if you do, you'll get a little bit more. But you can sort of pick them out and say, oh, here we got the deer. Okay, I got the idea about the repetition about the deer dying or whatnot. Let's maybe go to the next little fragment or whatnot. And so you can pick them out and you can pick and choose. And it's a way to foster more interactivity with the reader, which I always think is a good thing.
Yeah. Like, you were mentioning sort of like projects in the future. Is it the case that sort of like sometimes a project, or like, sorry to put it like as project, but when an idea for a thing that could be a novel or a play, does it sometimes come about as a reaction to a project ending? Or is it just the case that these ideas all run tangentially at the same time, like kind of on the go, you've just got these different things going, and kind of at any one point you'll go, I'll work on this now, and you'll grab this thread. Okay, I'll work on this now, and you do this other thread.
I mean, the thing I try to do is just have things going around it in my mind. Something will happen maybe 2 weeks from now that I'll write a note down, and 2 years from now I'll pick that up, or I'll get something will happen, like I mentioned, to ending the Maravelli family. Maybe I'll see some YouTube video on a gangster, or maybe something will happen at work, and I'll say, oh, that's the in for me to get to the Joey Greco character. Now I can write the book. When I did A Norwegian in the Family, you remember it opens up with the flowery speech of the Norwegian about hyacinths in May and whatnot. And I said, and I knew once I got that, I said, I've got the whole book. So almost 2.5 million words came just from my stumbling. Somehow it ruminated mine. I said, hyacinths in May, always, whatever the fuck he says, And I said, that's the key to the Norwegian character, and that's the key that'll open up the book. And it's like the old saying about going through a house. To go through a house, at some point, every work you start and every choice you make starts opening up ideas. And then at some point, you get to a point where you're reaching the turning point, the point where now you got to go down. And so every choice you make now starts closing doors. And so the way you open up and the way you maneuver through a home, or you maneuver through the levels, is going to affect what you do later on. And sometimes you can go back and say, oh, this door opened up this idea. Let me just throw in a little bon mot back 27 chapters earlier. So something that happens, an idea that comes to you midway through the book that you put in the book 3/4 of the way in, makes you go back and rewrite an earlier part of the book, so that you've planted a seed that some smart reader is going to get later on that wasn't there when you wrote the first draft or the second or the 10th draft of that. And so that you always have to be open. Too many people. I think I once said this to Alex Sheremit, or maybe it was Peter Cleese, that a woman that I once knew and had an aborted encounter with, very much like some of the Levels women. I saw a video she did online, and she's got this typical thing where she, on her wall, her bedroom wall, she's got this whole timeline, and she's got these posters, and she's got everything plotted out and whatnot. And the idea of the book was just not good. It was generic and silly and whatnot. But even if
there's that thing is like pre-calculating something before you've actually done it.
Right.
When the work should come from the work.
And the work should be a constant generative dynamo that's going. Yeah. And you have to, as an artist, if 9 months into a 1,000,000-word book that you're writing that's is going to take 3 years, you get something that means you have to go back and rewrite the first 20%. Do it. Yeah. Just like within a poem. If you want to write a poem about the Nazi invasion of Poland, but it turns out to be a poem about a poodle that you loved as a child, go with the fucking poodle. You can always write about the Nazis later.
Yeah. Like the actual production, being able to like just work and have that text like